Welcome to This Week in Adventist History. On April 30, 1898, a baptism was conducted in the suburbs of Tokyo, in the Meguro River, the first Seventh-day Adventist baptismal service in Japan. Among those baptized was a young man, Hizu Kuniya, who later became the first Seventh-day Adventist convert in Japan to be ordained as an Adventist minister and was a delegate to the 1909 General Conference session in Tacoma Park. Kuniya, who you see here, went on to establish the first Seventh-day Adventist local churches in many Japanese cities, and he was imprisoned for his faith during World War II. Hizu Kuniya died in 1962, 11 weeks short of his 90th birthday. You can read more about him in the Encyclopedia of Seventh-day Adventists at encyclopedia.adventist.org. That's encyclopedia.adventist.org. Also on April 30, but 32 years later, April 30, 1930, the first Adventist baptism in the country of Liberia took place. 6 years earlier, L.F. Langford, a British missionary, and Ernst Flammer, a German missionary, had been sent to open mission work in Liberia, and they found a suitable site at Seyan, where they opened the Palmberg Mission Station. Langford moved elsewhere, and in 1928, Ernst Flammer went back to Germany, where he married Joanna Pfalzner, before returning with Joanna to Liberia. In 1929, a boarding school opened at the mission, headed by a new German missionary, Karl Nolzer. These several years of work were the precursor to the historic baptism of 4 Liberians at Seyan. One of them, Willie Helbig, later became the first Liberian ordained to gospel ministry. Today there are 29,000 Seventh-day Adventists in Liberia, the fruit of that first baptism 93 years ago. You can read more about Ernst Flammer at encyclopedia.adventist.org. On May 1, 1918, the Danish pastor Steen Emil Marius Rasmussen, who you see here, was called to the Pacific Press in California as editor of several foreign language papers. Steen Rasmussen and his wife Anna had been called from Denmark to the United States 5 years earlier in 1913 to work for the North American Division's Foreign Language Department, which he then headed from January 1915. After moving to Pacific Press in 1918, Rasmussen edited the Hungarian Signs of the Times and the Danish-Norwegian language paper Missionæren. In 1920, Steen and Anna returned to Denmark, where Steen took up responsibilities as departmental secretary of the Sabbath School, Education, Young People's Missionary Volunteers, and Home Missionary Departments of the Scandinavian Union Conference. In late 1924, the Rasmussens moved to Bern, Switzerland, where Steen took over as Young People's Missionary Volunteer Secretary for the European Division. He became known as the Friend of the Youth. From 1927, he also headed the division's Home Missionary Department. In 1936, Rasmussen was called to Washington, D.C. in the United States to lead the Home Missionary Department of the General Conference. Rasmussen threw himself wholeheartedly into his work, as he had done in every administrative position he held for the church since 1911, and he exhausted himself. Steen Rasmussen died of a heart attack on March 5, 1941, aged only 52 years old. And you can also read more about him at encyclopedia.adventist.org. That's encyclopedia.adventist.org. And that was This Week in Adventist History.